Thank you very much, Sarit. And next up, I'm going to bring up my colleague, Brian Moseley, to tell us all about CRM.
All right. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Sarit. Hope everybody is happy with their morning Pilates. Thank you for that, Sarit. We appreciate you. So my name is Brian. I have been working in the MarTech sales tech industry in SaaS for about 15 years. I got my start at HubSpot back in 2013, helped be a part of the founding member of the partner program there. After that, I went to DataBox, built a 400 agency partner program there. It's a small startup. Then I went to AWS for about a year and a half, didn't love the big company enterprisey vibes, and then went to SEMrush, which is a industry-leading SEO software that was recently acquired by Adobe because the AEO world and the GEO world killed SEO. So I've learned a lot about partnerships, and my passion is helping small businesses like yourselves be successful partnering with a larger SaaS company. Everything I've built in my career has all been founded on one belief, that the best software in the world does not sell itself. It needs to be deployed, installed, managed by the right partners to get the right customer outcomes. So today I'll be walking through the vision and the roadmap of our new agentic CRM. But first, some background. In January, our CEOs got up on stage at the sales kickoff in London, and they made a very declarative statement. They said, the world has changed, and Monday is changing. This is not a roadmap. This is not if. This is not eventually. This is now. And that shift isn't just about our product. It means changing the fundamental business model underneath everything that we do. So for the last 20 years, SaaS has ran on one assumption: more people, more users, more seats. That math made a lot of sense when humans were doing the work and software was helping them just do it faster. Specifically, this change means from moving from the long-standing seats and licenses-based revenue model to following in the footsteps of Anthropic and OpenAI and every other AI-native company out there, and switching to a consumption-based model where customer value is derived by these agentic outcomes. Everybody keeps using the word agentic. I'm going to describe it for how I look at it here in a second. So every company's trying to figure out this AI adoption, AI transformation. And it starts with drinking your own champagne, which brings me to something that's happening here at Monday next week. This is a real Slack message that I did not ask permission to show from our COO, Adi Dar, announcing that we are at a turning point. Internally, next week, we're participating in this agentic transformation build week. This is not optional, he says. This is essential. For an entire week, every team, every role will be building agents. And you might be sitting there thinking, okay, that's great. You're Monday, you're a software company. That works for you. But here's why it's important for everybody sitting in this room. Every major shift in technology over the last 100 years has followed a very similar pattern. And the companies that see it coming and move early get to define the next era. The ones that wait, even the smart ones who run really good businesses, are going to be left behind. Not because they're slow or incompetent or anything like that, but because they are optimizing for a world that they are optimizing on a model that the world is moving away from. And there's actually a name for this. It's the innovator's dilemma. It's a concept introduced by a guy named Clayton Christensen. He was a professor of Harvard Business School back in 1997. So this is not new or novel. His research studied why well-managed, successful companies constantly lost market share when industries shifted. And the answer was sort of counterintuitive. They failed not because they were making bad business decisions, but because they were making rational business decisions. They were continuing to optimize for the model that was working up until the model stopped. So the S-curve shows how this plays out. Every business has a life cycle. The industries have a birth, a growth, maturity, and eventually a decline. The dilemma zone here is the moment where new business models emerge and start to threaten the old business models. Companies that survive to the second S-curve and are able to make the change during that dilemma zone are safe. The ones that don't aren't. A couple of examples that I'm sure you've heard. Kodak actually invented the digital camera back in 1975, but they intentionally shelved it because they felt it would compete with their primary business of print. And then we all know that they went bankrupt in 2012. Blockbuster, 9,000 stores, millions of loyal customers, and first look deals with major movie studios, famously passed on acquiring Netflix for $50 million back in the year 2000. And that DVD by mail model seemed like it was too niche for them. Netflix then was in their dilemma zone when streaming came along, and that's an example where this actually worked to get to that second S curve. They started to create content. And to prove the point, last year alone, they won 30 Emmys and 7 Oscars during the award season. So the dilemma zone is where we all are right now. We're in this together. The second S curve already exists. The question is, how do we all make this transition? So to understand the shift, let's look at another technology example that I really like, Whoop. Whoop, let's assume, is starting to move from a subscription-based revenue model to Whoop credits. And let's pretend you're training for a marathon and you have very specific performance goals that you're trying to hit. You're trying to improve, to train for this marathon. You're not trying to just be more productive around the house. You have SMART goals. These are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-limited goals. And to start your training, instead of joining a gym, you decide to buy a squat rack from your local equipment manufacturer. That equipment manufacturer passes the lead to the installer, and the installer comes to your house. They set up the squat rack. They configure it for your height, and maybe you use it, maybe you don't. But you sign in a maintenance and support agreement with the installer, and they come by once a year and they check everything to make sure it's working, and then they move on to the next project. So if you're Whoop and you're asking yourself, who are going to be our most successful partners? Are they going to be these one-time installers, or are they going to be personal trainers? Personal trainers are someone who show up at your house at 6 a.m. with a plan. It's a nutrition plan. They're scheduling your weekly workouts. They're giving you feedback. They know your life. They're helping you work towards a performance goal instead of helping you with productivity in your life. The installer business model is not bad. It works really well for productivity type tools. But for sales and marketing, go-to-market, GTM, where there are set performance goals, you need a different model. These are marketing agencies or sales enablement agencies. And there's a new type of agency that is an AI automation or AI agentic agency. Typically, they measure their effectiveness around GTM metrics like visits, leads, close rate, time to lead, opportunity, deal sizes. And CRMs, keep in mind, for the last 10 years, 20 years even, they used to be productivity tools. 20 years ago, when Salesforce partners were starting to look around and figure out what other CRMs they could be partnering with, they were just digital Rolodexes that absolutely needed to be installed and configured. But things have changed. Agents are not installed. Agents are like employees. You don't install an employee, leave them alone. You give them training, you give them optimization, and eventually you expand their scope and hopefully help them build a team. So here's some examples of how existing Monday installer partners are starting to make this transition to offering sales and marketing services. This is a German partner that I had the pleasure of hanging out with at the summit, Till Freitag. This is what their existing Monday work management installer services look like. Here is an example of what their CRM services start to look like. You'll see things like pipeline lead automation, sales ops, rev ops, revenue operations, and my favorite, go-to-market engineering. They still help companies with SOPs and process delivery, but they're also now starting into getting into agentic building. So let's walk through some more examples of what this might look like installed at a real client account. Let's imagine there's a perfect Monday fit customer, it's one of my favorite, called Club Car. They're a 140-person factory out of South Carolina, and they're a perfect fit Monday customer. So let's pretend they have 2 BDRs and 8 sales reps. They have 5 marketers and 25 account managers, all really happy on Monday CRM and work management. And they're paying us about $1,700 a month for these 40 users to help be more productive. But let's walk through their flow. And this flow is not atypical. This is a very comparable flow to almost any B2B business. Lead comes in through the contact us or request pricing form. BDR has to reach out, spend a couple days, start to qualify, maybe does some research, probably doesn't, they're too busy. Then they figure out when the rep can make the call, they schedule some time on the calendar, they go back and forth. But let's pretend this prospect is like a really big prospect. They are a golf course out of Massachusetts that's looking for 100 different golf carts. But maybe when the sales rep takes the call, they're in the car, they don't take notes. All of these ideas and concepts and goals and challenges from the call fall through the cracks. Then they're busy. They've got kids, they're walking their dog. Life happens. They forget to follow up, even with a potentially huge deal. And then at that same week, one of their biggest accounts, they're not super tied in. They go on vacation for a week, they forget about the renewal, the call comes up all of a sudden, and that renewal churns. So in 1 week, not only are they not productive, or not as productive as they could be, but they lose out on a big deal and an existing renewal falls through the cracks. If you add up all the time that these account managers and sales reps are just spending booking meetings, qualifying, enriching contacts, it could be about $50,000 in human labor time per month. Enter the zero loss workflow. Step one, lead comes in, agent responds immediately, gives them a call, gives them a WhatsApp, gives them an SMS, text message, responds to the lead. Maybe this agent gets the lead on the phone and they get some clear context and records the call on what the prospect is looking for. The lead, another agent books it automatically to the sales rep's calendar, minimizing speed to lead. And it goes on and on like this. You can see the rep then preps for the call, the note taker takes the notes, the sales rep agent sends preps the follow-up email. The human isn't removed from the process. The role which they play has simply changed. They've gone from the beginning of the assembly line where they are creating the email to the end of the assembly line where they simply become the approver of the email that the agent created. And so here's the math for the CFO. And this is what everybody here at Monday, and I'm sure at your own companies are trying to figure out is how do we price, package, and sell agentic transformation? So here's how I would think about it. You go to a CFO and you say, currently right now, your company is spending about $51,000 on these very simple admin tasks. But it's not just about the money, it's about how complete the tasks are and the quality of those outcomes. Again, sellers on average, if they have 5 calls, they really only recap 1 of those calls. That's a lot of revenue potentially falling through the cracks. So moving to this agentic system, yes, it will increase the software cost from $1,500 to $7,200, but it will decrease the human labor costs from $51,000 down to $7,200. However, if you only focus on time savings, that's a very poor value proposition. It's actually the worst value proposition. I never want to talk about time savings. I only want to talk about how much more improved and how we are plugging the leaky revenue faucet. So in the age of agentic CRM, the industry is moving from CRMs being a system of record to a system of action. But now we have another problem. Over the last few years, the cost of deploying software has dropped developing software and deploying is starting to drop to almost zero. As a result, there are hundreds and thousands of agentic point solutions on the market. I get emails every single day from people that have their own AI company that want to sell to Monday, and I have like a canned response. I say like, this is cool what you're doing, but we're launching that feature next week. And they're kind of sad about that. Your clients are probably feeling this way. They're probably feeling confused, and you know what they need? They need a go-to-market expert to help them unravel this tangled mess. So let's simplify it. I like to think in terms of methodologies because I think the best way to sell a concept is to sell a methodology first and then connect the service or product to the methodology. So this isn't finished. This is just what I have now. And I thought I'd ship it before it was perfect. So to simplify, starting at the bottom with the system of record, I have a pointer. Data enrichment. I'm sure a lot of you are using Clay, Apollo, ZoomInfo to make sure that your leads and contexts are enriched. Then more advanced GTM engineers are using intent signals like 6sense and Bombara to track things like K1s and employee hires and layoffs and things within your accounts. Then you're using outbound sequences, maybe outreach, SalesLoft. You're recording calls with Gong, Firefly, Granola, Chorus, whatever, and then you're using some sort of revenue execution layer. The way to explain this to your clients is that Monday fits into every layer of the GTM stack. So what does it look like? Back in 1999, Google took this very complex algorithm and simplified it to a simple prompt box, inviting you to explore your search query. And instead of some complex interface with these billion-dollar models, OpenAI and Anthropic did the same thing with a prompt box. So what do you think agentic CRM is going to look like? Prompt box. Now, you'll still have the abilities to go through and edit records in the way that you used to, because the adoption is not going to be instant, and there are going to be a lot of sellers and managers that are going to want the CRM classic. But in this dashboard, sellers and managers will be able to interact with agents as if they are messaging an MBA level team of superhumans in Slack, asking them any questions that they want about the context of their deals. So let's look at some of the features that make our agentic CRM unique. When I started in sales 10 years ago, there were two major things that frustrated me. One, I hated prepping for calls, and two, I hated recapping those calls. So the first thing I did when agents launched in Monday in January is I spent about 10 hours trying to figure this out. I even hired a partner to help me figure it out. We spent about 10 hours finally getting a zero loss, like the first 3 steps of this zero loss workflow that I had in my mind, complete. And it was like kind of working, kind of. And then 2 weeks ago, I got a Slack with a screenshot and a demo video from our AI expert, Benji, over in London. And he said, good news, we've launched Revenue Intelligence. Revenue Intelligence allows you to walk through every step of this zero loss workflow. And with a single click, you can prep for the next meeting on your calendar. Having agents scour the web for these intent signals. They also look internally within your CRM to see what other contacts and prospects at your company are talking to your prospects. And if you haven't talked to them for a month, or you go on vacation, or you forget to prep, all the information is right there. This one-click meeting prep is especially important for sales reps who don't take the time to read the notes from the BDR, but it's also important for the BDRs who are too busy to send the notes in the first place. So after each call, writing the perfect follow-up email takes time, because there's a couple different types of follow-up emails that we might have. So right now I'm spending half my time talking to partners like yourself, and the other half talking to prospective agentic CRM partners. Therefore, my recap agent, Ralph, he understands when I'm talking to a prospective partner versus an existing partner, and provides a different template based on the notes and everything they know about the prospect in my CRM. So this takes me about 5 minutes at the end of the day. It used to take me like an hour. I go into my Gmail. I've got all the drafts of all the different calls I had that day. I now have moved from the writer step to the approver step. I approve, approve, approve. I maybe change a couple things. Boom, my recap of my day is done. And the power of having all of your work management, campaign data, and CRM data in one place is obviously context. My mom started using ChatGPT, and I asked her how it was going, and she said, it sucks, it's horrible, I hate it. And I said, why? And she said, well, it doesn't know me, it doesn't give me the information that I want, and it's because it doesn't have any context. So once your agents have this context, it will start to automatically update your CRM for what it's hearing on your calls. So for example, when I was in sales, our sales manager used to make us put in goals and challenges for our prospect before we were able to move them to the next stage. Here, note taker can understand what the prospect said about their goals and give you suggestions for what you should put in that box with no writing. You click accept. Now you can move on to the next stage. This, again, is all stuff that would have saved me so much time when I was doing sales years ago. Ask me anything. This is essentially like having a sales manager built into your Slack that understands everything about your deals. It's actually better than a sales manager, and I can say that because I used to be one. Next best action. Sometimes you just want somebody else to take over. You want to turn your brain off a little bit and start to, again, move from the one actually thinking critically about where you should be spending your time, and you just want suggestions. WhatsApp and SMS. Personally, I'm not always checking my email. In fact, I will say, since working at Monday, I get down to inbox zero like every single day, and I never used to do that because I don't spend a lot of time in my email these days. I used to manage my life out of email. Now I'm in Claude MCP, connected to NoteTaker, connected to Monday, connected to CRM. It has all my tasks, which is connected to my Slack, connected to my calendar. I spend most of my day in there just draining Claude credits. So e-com has done a great job of building trust and loyalty in B2C through text message marketing, and it's time for B2B to do the same. Somebody's a big fan of WhatsApp. So you'll now have the ability to message your prospects manually or in a sequence or with some sort of lead nurturing workflow. And once you've built trust through email and text over time, maybe it's time for a call. Maybe the prospect asks you, like, hey, let's time we have that pricing call about those golf carts. So no need to leave CRM for a separate telephony platform. Soon clients can have all their Monday CRM phone number, and they can make dials directly from their iPhone. I used to be a co-owner of a small sailing business in Boston, and one of our challenges was that our general manager, Captain Paul, he was always on the docks or on a boat, and he just operated from a cell phone. He was never actually at a desk. So implementing phone systems that he could take calls from the road, record, and auto-update CRM would completely change his life. It's perfect for non-desk clients that don't wear a headset all day. Also in that boating business, we had a lot of side software. We had quotes, invoices out of QuickBooks. We had PandaDocs for signing member contracts. And where CRM is headed is become this all-in-one platform to get all this work done without extra SaaS. It's not just for sellers, it's also for account managers too. Win-loss analysis and account 360 views can help you predict renewal and win-loss conversations before they happen. And Monday campaigns. I'm super excited coming from the marketing automation world myself. It's been really impressive to see us go from just a simple MailChimp competitor up that campaign tech stack and start to get more competitive with email systems that have been, or I shouldn't just say emails, okay, omni-channel marketing automation systems that have been around for decades. We are making a lot. We are really closing that gap quickly. And keep in mind, this is a perfect example between installing software and running a go-to-market motion. So nobody installs email software. You need a human who's managing a bucket of agents or a ball of agents or a team of agents to be able to scrub the transcripts, understand in real time what customers are saying, parlay that into a campaign, build the content for that campaign, segment the list to send the right messages to the right leads at the right time. That is an ongoing service that you guys can provide that your clients are probably paying some other agency to do right now. Don't leave money on the table. Start getting good at thinking through what your next agency services are going to look like. Same thing as in CRM. You can ask your campaign expert in Sidekick. It can also suggest next steps. And I'm telling you guys, there's gold in these sales transcripts. Once you get your customers on NoteTaker, ideally, or if they're just using Gong and you can somehow get them into Monday CRM as items on in the items in a board, if you can get all these calls into a board, you start to have real power. The analogy that I think about is it's like a steam engine, and the call transcripts from the sales teams at your clients, that is the wood that builds the fire, that boils the water, that spins the turbine. If you can really start getting good at mastering what you're doing and how you're triggering workflows off of these call transcripts from account managers and sellers, that's the best path of building these agentic solutions. Now that we've seen the roadmap, let's talk about some simple next steps on how to get you all started. So first, as always, it always starts with drinking your own champagne. The best thing you guys can do is start to go home and build some of these agentic solutions for yourself. I know a lot of you already are, but really lean into this, because the best way to sell this is not to talk about AI, and it's really not even to talk about agents. It's to simply show real-world examples of how you're using it to save time. Talking about the before, like I did with our golf club cart company, and then talking about the agentic after. So as a result, I would say we are proud of our progress when it comes to AI adoption, but we measure ourselves against our potential. So one of the things that we're doing is we have a Tableau dashboard set up that every employee in this company can start to benchmark their own internal AI usage against other teams, against other regions, and against their teammates. We are not measured or goaled on this, but it's a great way to see how you're progressing. I challenge you all to think about how you can implement some sort of metrics-based AI usage system internally at your own companies. Also, we have launched these AI transformation packages. Now, in their current state, they are standalone project-based implementations, but in time, we're going to start moving to ongoing recurring retainer engagements for sales and marketing services, which customers frankly can't do themselves, and that's where they need your help. May 4th through 6th, we have a non-CRM related agentic hackathon. And I'm saying non-CRM because right now, technically the agents in CRM and campaigns are technically different than the work management agent factory agents, but they will all be merging together at some point. And I don't care whether you learn how to build agents in Claude or Monday Work Management or CRM, I just want you building. And then finally, I'm putting together a CRM or GTM specific cohort in May, which will be a 5-week program to help you all build and deploy your first agentic solution directly in a client account. So before we kick things off for the day, I want to leave you with a quick story, which helps me it helps us all frame the time that we're living in. And I was talking again to my mom the other day, and I learned a lot from talking to her because I am sort of forced to take these complex topics about what we all do on a day-to-day and distill them down using analogies to make it sort of simple. So pop quiz, here's an unlabeled chart. I know it's hard to read. This is showing the rise and fall of one of the top 10 largest specific industries in the United States in the 1800s. Can anybody guess what the industry is? 18. Steel. It is not steel, but steel is a top 10. Good. Any other guesses? Be bold. Horse carts. Great. You're on the right track. No. These are great guesses. Whaling. In the 1800s, whaling, especially out of Nantucket, was one of the most profitable industries in America. Whale oil was how you made candles, and candles were the only ways for businesses to operate after sundown. Whaling ships would spend months at sea, roaming the open ocean, processing plants would stand by on shore, and chandlers, no, it's not the guy from Friends, these are people that make candlesticks, would make billions of candles every year to light America. But at the end of that chain were businesses and hospitals, like the Knickerbocker Hospital in Manhattan. This was the lamplighter, the person who showed up every evening to light every candle by hand. And every one of these jobs existed because nobody had a better way to do it. But then in 1882, Edison opened the Pearl Street power plant, which isn't too far from here, and the whaling industry started to unravel. The Knickerbocker Hospital was one of the first of its kind to be wired with copper and purchase electricity from the Edison power plant. And candle makers and chandlers did lose their contracts, and the whaling industry died and never recovered. And these were good companies run by competent people doing everything right, gone because they failed to transition in that dilemma zone to the second S-curve. But the lamplighter did not lose their job. He knew the hospital better than anybody. He knew which rooms ran hot, which hallways had drafts. He knew the wings that had different quirks that it would take a new engineer weeks to learn or months to learn. He didn't get replaced. He got repurposed. He got moved in that assembly line. He was the person that understood the old system that turned out to be exactly the right person to manage the new one. So once the building had reliable power, the question then changed. Not just how much did we save on candles, but what else could we start to use electricity for? When this new system was being evaluated, I'm sure the CFO at the hospital asked how much it would cost. Reasonable question. But what they didn't realize was how electricity was going to completely change what the hospital was even capable of. Electricity made surgical theaters bright enough that they could operate after dark, which essentially doubled capacity without adding a single room. Sterilization equipment could now have precise heat controls, and that caused infection rates to drop. X-ray machines, which had been invented like a decade earlier, were just unable to run without a consistent power source, were now able to come online. And then elevators, which completely changed what the building itself could be. They were able to build up instead of just out. None of that was in the original business plan when the CFO signed off on replacing candles. And that's where your clients are right now. Companies coming into this AI conversation potentially anchored around cost reduction. And again, that's fair and reasonable, but that's a candle conversation. The companies that only think about AI as cost cutting are going to end up like the whaling industry. The wiring is going in right now. Your clients need your helps to build these systems. So the question now becomes, what are you going to help your clients build when the lights finally come on? And that's what I'll leave you with. Thank you so much.